There are a lot of cool 5-star elemental skills in this game, but some get boring to use faster than other ones, and some I think are just more useful to have over time for a more relaxing experience. So I'll share with you which ones I think are the best, and see if I can upset anyone with my opinions. First up, the newest character on the block, Nahida. Nahida's elemental skill is what I would consider one of the peaks of Genshin character design. One of the coolest things about Nahida is that she can read NPCs' minds, and she's the first character to ever be able to do that. It's something that I never thought I'd need in this game until now. I have so much fun having Nahida in my party and just going around reading everyone's minds and just hearing their inner thoughts. For example, this girl right here in the academia.
If I hide here, then I don't have to deal with Mahamudra Sino's jokes.
Oh man, it's something that you just have to experience for yourself. It's such a blessing just being able to learn some hidden secrets that NPCs are hiding. Now the downside is that the NPCs have to be named NPCs in Sumeru, but thankfully it does still work on NPCs who are event NPCs from Sumeru events. Nahida's elemental skill also allows her to pick up plants from a very far range, and I cannot stress enough how nice it is to have this, because when it comes to farming, you have to farm everything in this game. Except for, well, Loach Pearls from Liyue and Holy Water from Springville and Mondstadt, which both still have no use for them yet. I bet you that this skill is going to come in handy a lot in the future for most players who have her. It may not work on boss drops or on animal life like scarabs, for example, but it's still a very nice skill to have. Now, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, her normal attack animation represents a keyboard, but what you might not have noticed is that the press version of her elemental skill is a mouse cursor, and same could be said for her charge attack animation, making her probably one of the only PC gamers in Tevat. Her elemental skill marks up to 8 opponents, and when one of them receives an elemental reaction, all of them will receive a Dendro attack. Now regardless of the distance, enemies, even if they're super far away, will still trigger the reaction because of how far the chain reaches, meaning that she's the queen at applying Dendro on field and off field. Personally, I love Nahida's elemental skill. I think it's good for any Dendro team that's gonna come out in the future, and well, all the current Dendro teams. Nahida's added so much more to the game. After being added, so many new teams have popped up out of nowhere thanks to her. So I love her elemental skill.
Does Manthis wine taste the same as I remember?
Zhongli, I'm sure we all know by now, is one of the best characters in this game. His hold elemental skill produces a shield that scales off of his max HP and reduces the elemental and physical resistance of opponents by 20%. With an uptime of 20 seconds and a cooldown of only 12 seconds, he basically has a permanent shield that will never break as long as you remember to put it on. Now, the only real problem with Zhongli is that he makes people forget how to dodge, and it's pretty consistent across the board. And he also makes the game a little bit too easy for those who might want a challenge. Like, I always have to remember to take him off my team if I want to have a challenge or a chance of dying. But I do believe that he is the king of comfort play. For those who just want to play the game without thinking too much, you just want to relax while doing your artifact samsaras. You don't want to try hard and sweat through everything, you just want to get it done. He might not have a cleanse, but as long as there's no corrosion, you don't even need a healer with him. And he also has the nice benefit of making ores easier to collect with his elemental skill too. His tap elemental skill gives you one of his pillars, and that skill, to be honest, is kinda lame. Besides the ability to climb his pillar for more height, it's kinda copium. But ignoring the pillar mechanic that I guess I should say can also resonate with geoconstructs, his hold skill, his shield, is the best shield in the game for now. There'll probably be like sub options that are better for some characters, but until then I think most of us are just gonna stick with Zhongli. Yelan, the character that dashes around the map as fast as I dash into my crush's DMs. Now this might be a little bit of personal bias because of how much I love Yelan, but her skill is pretty amazing. Exploring the map is a really big part in this game, and she gives you one of the best tools to getting around the map quicker, especially in the desert where most of the terrain is flatlands and there's long stretches where you have to go back and forth from pyramid to pyramid in order to get your Scarlet and Sand Slate upgraded, and then back again to try and open all the doors that you couldn't open the last time. It was such a huge time save, and a major blessing to have her and to have her C1 so that I get 2 of her elemental skills and her dashes just running around the whole map. Plus, if you ever run into any small enemies, you can just run right through them so they don't even get in your way. So you know how I said people have forgotten how to dodge when they have Zhongli in their party? Well, for me, I have forgotten how slow it feels to go around the map without Yelan. I can't anymore. It's just way too slow without her. It actually hurts me. Plus, she's one of the only characters besides maybe Dainsleif in the future who has a movement ability that can get you from point A to point B in a fast pace. So I appreciate it. It is the fastest version of speed we have in the game so far, faster than Seiyu, faster than Ayaka Sprint, etc. And you can even stack speed buffs onto it, which makes it even cooler. Plus, we know they're going to add a lot more areas to explore later in the future, and so having Yelan is just a way to speed up the process a little bit. I just really value the utility that she brings to the table, and I use it every single day because it's just that nice. It literally changed the way I play Genshin. It can mark an infinite amount of enemies as well. Like, what's not to love about Yelan? She's just a perfect character. Raiden, well, if you told me before that you were going to build her on a full EM Raiden build, I would think you're crazy. But now after Dendros come out, it is one of her best builds, and I highly recommend you try it out because it's so much fun. A's elemental skill was already great because her skill, Eye of Stormy Judgment, increases all of her party members' elemental burst damage based off of the energy cost of the elemental burst during the Eye's duration, as well as unleashing a coordinated attack, dealing electro damage at the opponent's position after the damage that procs it, which means it'll always most likely be the trigger element after the aura. Another good thing about it is that the skill is AoE, so it's great for triggering hyper blooms. It's a really nice skill that lasts for a very long time of 25 seconds with a cooldown of only 10 seconds for it to refresh. And it's very nice that it works from long range or short range. Doesn't matter how far you are, it'll always just proc. Also, I do just love the fact that it gives you energy and elemental burst damage bonus, because those are both very nice things that everyone needs. It's nice that it's an off-field ability. The only downside is, at least for the Hyper Bloom side of it, is that you don't get to use her burst as much with it. But besides that, it's a wonderful, wonderful skill. And if you're ever feeling lonely, you can just go back to the original emblem build and just go for the one-shots. Shenhe? Well, if cryo, why hot?
Take your true form.
Cryo has always been a good element, and all of the characters who are cryo are pretty amazing. So when Hoyoverse decided to make Shenhe, they were just like, let's just make every cryo character into a monster DPS. Her elemental skill is focused on buffing her team. When you activate her elemental skill, her team gets stacks of her quills that essentially make all of her cryo attacks get buffed off of her current attack. The attack version gives 3 energy particles while the hold gives 4. When Shenhe uses this skill to do damage, it uses a quill for every enemy hit. In a nutshell, basically, if you use cryo, she's gonna double your damage. Even triple sometimes. I think that her skill is easy to use and comfortable to play. She's also one of my favorite buffing characters. Like, she's the favorite version of my damage buffing type character. For elemental skills besides Kazuha, I do think that Shenhe's elemental skill, Spirit Summoning, looks really beautiful aesthetic-wise, just like Shenhe does. And though a lot of people see her as niche and they think that since she's niche, niche is bad, I don't really agree with that. I think that niche things are good. For example, Nilou is another niche character who creates new ways to play the game. In Shenhe's case, making it so that you can run Chongyun and turn Zhongli into like a cryo Zhongli is just really fun and cool to me. I think it's also worth mentioning that a lot of her constellations affect her elemental skill to become even better later on. So you always have that to look forward to if you decide to get those constellations. Also, Shenhe's kind of like a future-proof character. If the Saritsa comes out in the future, chances are you're going to be able to play her with Shenhe. There's a lot of cryo characters that are probably going to come out, and Shenhe's going to buff all of them. Kazuha. His elemental skill is one of my favorites. You can use it to bring your opponents closer to you and group them up. It can also be used midair to stop fall damage or to help you climb up mountains. If there are ever any events like Wind Chaser, you can just use his elemental skill to cheese it. Thanks to him being an animo character, you also get the benefits of running a 4-piece Viridescent on him, and you can lower the enemy's resistance by 40% for 10 seconds. His passive makes it so that when you swirl an element, you also gain an elemental damage buff based off of his max EM. making him an even more valuable party member to have on your team. His skill can also break elemental shields really easily. When there's multiple types of shields, you can just swirl them all together and they'll break each other. A great example of this is the new event, Adventure Trials, where you can just use 4 Kazuhas to swirl all the Abyss Mage shields. It's a really fun time, and it shows just how busted it really is. Kokomi, I think, has a very nice elemental skill. She summons a jellyfish that heals you based off of her max HP. And while I may not care about healing as someone who hasn't really built healers in this game because the game's a little too easy, I think that if you have Kokomi on your team, you're going to be in another Zhongli situation where you will never die. Now, the reason why Kokomi's jellyfish is so good is because her hydro uptime is incredibly good. Her jellyfish applies and deals hydro damage every time it ticks. It lasts for about 12 seconds, and by the time you finish your rotations, it's usually back up again. Honestly, you can put her on basically any team and she'll do just fine. I think that the hydro effects on her jellyfish are also really nice. And if you're like me and you're starting to use bloom teams more and more, having a healer is kinda necessary. I also think that Komi's elemental skill is great for co-op. I love doing co-op, and when you go into a world boss and you're trying to play with other people, if they're not running Kokomi, you slightly question, there's doubt in your head that you might die. But if there's a Komi on your team, you know you're going to get healed by that jellyfish eventually. Keqing, one of my favorite characters. Her elemental skill, Stellar Restoration, throws a lightning stiletto that can be aimed if the skill is held down and deals electro damage to enemies in a small area upon impact. If Keqing uses her skill again while the marker is still up, she will teleport to its location and performs a quick slash dealing electro AoE damage. The lightning stiletto can be used in many different situations. Just like with Kazuha, Keqing can use it to navigate over difficult terrain and cheese events. She can also use it to make her normal and charge attacks electro infused. Unlike with most of the new infusion characters, she can switch off the field and still keep her electro infusion, which I love. If you don't want her to get electro infused but you still want her to do electro damage, you can just use a charge attack to clear the lightning stiletto before you use the marker. Her versatility makes her a great option for being built as a physical character or even memeing on it and making her a pyro, hydro, or cryo Keqing. Also, with a Thundering Fury set and Dendro, her skills are literally always off cooldown, making her, in my opinion, one of the most fun quick swap characters to play. I'm a big fan of fast characters with low cooldown, so I love her elemental skills. She's also one of the only melee characters whose elemental skill can be used to hit Rune Guard weak points, and she can hit enemies in the air with it as well, which is wonderful because Hoyoverse seems to be slowly adding more enemies that can fly, and instead of swapping to a bow character, I like that I can just use Keqing. Ayato, now I could be wrong about this one because I don't have him, but his skill looks really sick and fun to use. And the animation team, I think, did a great job making his skill look really good. Ayato's elemental skill will leave a watery illusion in its place that explodes and does AoE hydro damage if opponents are nearby or after its duration ends. While in the Takameguri Kanka state, Ayato unleashes rapid AoE hydro damage that are normal attack damage and cannot be overridden by something like Bennett's Burst. After he attacks an enemy with his skill, he also gets an attack bonus based on his current max HP, with the max amount of Nemesis stacks being 4. Also, while using his elemental skill, his resistance to interruption is increased, but he cannot perform charged or plunging attacks. So it kinda sucks that if he switches off the field, he loses his Hydro Infusion, but it's very nice that you can put him on a team with, say, Chungyun and his skill won't be overridden, so he doesn't lose the majority of his damage if you build him as a Hydro character. I don't like that his infusion rate is on the shorter side at only 6 seconds, but I think that his elemental skill feels rewarding to play, it looks easy to use, and I think that it just gives you that anime swordsman feel more than any other character. And I love anime swordsmen. Scaramouche, if you know, you know. Now I think it's time for some honorable mentions. First up, Ito, because he has the dancing cow named Ushi. I just don't know anyone that can't love that dancing cow. Sino while in burst, but otherwise, his skill is useless. Yumiko was almost considered because she's like Electro Albedo, but her turrets don't break and her C6 is busted. And she's like the queen of lazy play. The only problem I have with her is that she's not exactly easy for new people to play. And when you use her skill, they have no iframes on them and it locks you, so you can't use your dodge even if you wanted to. Traveler, cause they can use every element. Child, I just wish you could Unga Bunga in his elemental skill without stopping and gaining a massive cooldown. Also because every time we see a Child showcase, we all know it's actually just a Zhongli showcase, and he rarely crits. In conclusion, reminder that this is just the 5-star elemental skills that I think are the best, not in any particular order. Feel free to let me know if you agree with me, or if you think someone else should be in the top 10. Personally, I'm hoping that future characters get even cooler 5-star elemental skills. We'll have to wait and see if that comes true. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to subscribe, and I will see you next time.